Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I am excited, as always, to be here with you once again. And I know you just saw me last night, so you're probably like, why are you on my screen again? I know. But today we have a midday. When I was doing Women's History Month, I was also kind of doing some of these in the midday. And so I'm excited to share with you one of my sorors who I have actually met about a year and a half ago through another widow, Saber Robertson, who has Black Widows Women Empowered organization that helps widows. And Kimberly and I were both on one of the podcasts together, and I found out she was my sorority sister. So y'all already know. I was like, come on, Soror, let's talk. And then I found out another very important piece of information that we'll eventually get to. So come on in, make sure you are sharing this, make sure you are commenting and talking to us, and just make sure you're joining in the conversation and sharing with another widow. So, Kimberly, hey,
Oh,
how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's what, hump day? So we're making it through the week.
Absolutely. That Wednesday hump day, let's get it going.
Mhm.
Well, before we get into questions, and again, I just want to say to you and to everyone, I am so grateful for you taking the time out of your day to join me in this conversation, a conversation series, Widows Unveiled. And really, I want to unveil, what we are and who we are and our stories because they don't stop with us becoming a widow.
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. It's such an important topic. And honestly, I'm thrilled to be here with you. Thank you, Elle.
Thank you so much. So before we get into our questions, I'd like for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where do you live? What kind of work you do, and what do you like to do for fun?
Okay. Well, right now I live on the eastern shore of Maryland. So it's about 2.5 hours outside of DC, Baltimore, and Philly. And it's right on the water. And honestly, that has been my saving grace moving here after I became a widow. I am originally from Texas, though. I am a Houston girl, but I also, uh, my parents moved us to Saudi Arabia when I was a kid. So I grew up overseas in the Middle East, went back to high school outside Dallas. I am a morning anchor, so a television journalist here. And I I love to dance. I love to eat. I love to bake. I have a dog, and I love to watch movies. So I'm a huge homebody, and I'm actually a really quiet person, which people don't normally think because I'm on TV and you have to be loud in your face and get the information out.
Absolutely.
But at home, I'm normally just quiet and chill.
You're like, I go into solitude. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister and a baby brother, and we are 10 and 14 years apart. So there's a big age gap.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Favorite food. You said you like to eat. What's your favorite food?
Oh, my meal. So my mom, whenever something's going wrong or we come home, we each have our meal that my mom makes, and mine is fried catfish with some sweet potatoes, and I love some like peach cobbler. I have a huge, horrible sweet tooth. My mom is always getting on me about, but fried catfish is it.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I always ask people to just tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what do you like to do for fun so that the audience can relate because we know that there's someone watching, whether it's a widow or not, who is just like, oh, yes, Kim, you like fried catfish? I do too, girl. So I love it. So now I'd like to hear, how did you become a widow? What happened? What are the circumstances that brought you to this unwanted title that many of us have?
Well, my widow walk started in 2016. It was actually April 2016. And it was a normal day, April 16th, 2016. And we were having a beautiful Saturday. I lived in Orlando, Florida at the time with my late husband, Rashid. And we had been busy. And so we decided to just hang out and do what you love to do, which was, that night we were going to go and see some movies. So we went to the movie theater, we saw one movie and decided, hey, one thing we haven't done since, we were quote unquote kids when we were dating is see two movies back to back and just hang out and talk. And so we did that. We got home late and he was working on some stuff, decided he wanted to pick up some snacks from the store across the street from our complex. And it was a beautiful Florida night in April. So he decided to walk. And we always kissed and hugged goodbye. And that was the one night where he just gave me a hard time and said he was going to be fine. I'll be right back. And he just took forever to come home. I was texting him, he wasn't responding. And finally I was, threatening him. If you don't respond, Lola, our dog, and myself are going to come look for you. And it was 11:30 at night. And he still didn't respond. At that point, I knew something was wrong. And so I grabbed Lola's leash. We walked outside, went to the gate of our complex, and I saw a group of people. And so, you go to the group, I'm looking for Rashid in the group, and I can't see him. I can't find him. And finally, I get to the edge of the street. I'm looking across the street. There's another group of people standing on the other side. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And someone said, someone got hit by a car. So my first thought is Rashid went to help that person. And I'm thinking, all right, the police are here. Authorities are here. Now you need to come home. Where are you? And I'm looking, and I just can't find him. And finally, an officer walks over to me and asks me my name, and then asked me to walk to the back of the cruiser. And that's when I found out that Rashid had been involved in a multiple vehicle hit and run. And 3 cars actually hit him. And the first 2 did not stop. The first one hit him and kept going. The second one, witnesses said she was on her cell phone and kept going. And the third one, a taxi driver, the women in the back asked him to stop, so he did. And it's still unsolved to this day. And it's one of those things where you're never prepared for your loved one, especially your spouse, to leave you, even if it is something that you can mentally try to get things in order. When that moment comes, you can't prepare for it. But we literally, he was supposed to be gone for 15 minutes. He was one of the healthiest people I've ever known in my life. And for him to be gone, it was a thought I had, and a thought a lot of our friends had, that, okay, Rashid was so strong. He was hit by a car. What hospital are you taking him to? He must be at the hospital. How is he going to recover? I'm thinking about, we'll have this and this and that. Not that he literally died in the streets in front of me, in front of our home. And on the one night, we didn't say goodbye to each other. Oh.
Wow. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing that. And yes, I can't even imagine. As a woman who unexpectedly lost my husband, it'd be different though, right? So to hear that story, I hear the pain that you still feel, right? And I hear just how tragic that must have felt. So I'm wondering, how through that incident where you expected to see your husband 15 minutes later, how have you been able to manage your grief, and how did you fight through that? How did you get to the next day?
It was certainly a process. It is a process. I think it's one of those things I have learned to be gentle with myself. I have learned that I am going to have bad days. I've had bad days, and bad moments will still pop up, and to give myself space to be able to have those moments, because if you suppress them and you pretend everything's fine when it isn't, it will rear its ugly head and get you at some point. So you have to feel all of the emotions. And so I went through everything. I went through the process, and it's, was a very dark place for a long time. At the time Rashid was killed, I had actually walked away from my career. I was a reporter and anchor in Orlando, and I decided I didn't want to re-sign my contract. I was, in this figuring out life moment. And so I hadn't worked in a year and a half. And so at that point, I didn't have a job. We didn't really have family. We had friends, but not family in Florida. And so it didn't even, I couldn't even think, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? What are my next steps? And thank God, my parents and friends really stepped in and literally moved me out of the apartment in a week. My parents moved me home to Virginia. And I literally just started over from there. And when I say started over, I mean, started over and trying to figure out, putting one foot in front of the other. And my first TV job, my first job I had on air was here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland in Salisbury, Maryland. And, it was many, many, many moons ago, but I was starting to work on some legislation and do some other work. And so I returned here for a friend who was producing a show and had an interview about that work. And when I was leaving, my old boss still works here. And he asked, "What are you doing, kiddo? We need a morning anchor. Would you consider coming back?" And I knew at that point, I didn't want to do anything, but I had to figure out something I could do. And I needed to just take it one step at a time. And I knew, hey, sweetie.
Yeah, you see her. That's Simone.
I knew that first big step would have to be getting a job. And so I wanted to be someplace softer and quieter. And thank goodness this place was 2.5 hours away from my parents and my in-laws, but still gave me space to breathe and grieve. And there's also, it's more of a slower rural country town. So there's a lot of nature, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of fresh air.
Which is a good way to connect and center yourself and be present. Yes, absolutely. Exactly. I love that. Tell me, I'm adding a picture. Tell me about this picture. I asked you to send me over some pictures, and this is one of the ones. Talk to me about this.
This was, you know what, I was going to say it was an anniversary, but it actually was right after Christmas. I want to say 2 years after losing Rashid. I think it was my second Christmas. And I went to visit one of my girlfriends. And Rashid is buried in Georgia in a small town. And it was one of those things where, again, we didn't have a home base in Florida. I had no idea where I was going to land, where I was going to live. And his parents, though they're in Jersey, they're from Georgia. And so they asked to bury him there. And it was, one place I knew he would always be surrounded by family and love. And so it's a hard place for me to get to, which is something I hate because I don't get to visit him often. But a good friend of mine lived about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from there. So I went to her after Christmas one year, and I drove there by myself and had some time. And it was one of those things where widows understand that moment, and it's just a part of your life. And before becoming a widow, I wouldn't have even understood that moment, but it was spending some time with Rashid and making sure the gravesite was okay, as well as just being. And it's, it's not always, or hardly ever, a nice moment, a pleasant moment, but it's something that you have to do, and it gives you peace when you're able to go and visit and bring some flowers. And one of those things, he always brought me flowers, but now it's me bringing him flowers.
In a different kind of way, but bringing him flowers nonetheless. I love it.
Exactly. So,
that is wonderful. I love it. So that brings me to my next question. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about being a widow?
I think people believe it's either all or nothing. And when I say that, I'm talking about your emotions. I think people think you either have to be completely just sad and angry and just low to the ground, wearing black. You can't focus, you can't do anything, you're just this mess, which happens. But I think either you're that, or the moment you start to smile, the moment you start to live, and breathe, you must be okay. And you must have gotten over it and have moved on. And I think people don't understand there's just like life, this huge space in the middle where you live most of your life and you learn to live with the grief and it changes you. And if you are able to truly move forward and to embrace this new version of yourself and your new life, no matter how you feel about it, you learn to live in a space where there is love and joy and peace and smiles and laughter again.
Yeah.
But there's also sadness and there's also triggers and pain. And
they can coexist, right?
Exactly. Sometimes in the same moment. Sometimes in the very same moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people all the time. I'm just like, you all don't understand. Like, one minute I can be extremely like excited and happy. And then in the next moment, I'm like, what just happened? Like, I'm just like bawling because I see something or I hear something or I have a thought about something or my daughter does something that reminds me of her father. Like, all of these things. Yeah.
No, exactly.
So with that, then how do you keep your husband's legacy alive? Because, you know, you talked about like he was this special person. And so when you have this special person in your life, you don't want their memory to just go away. Like, there's other things. So how do you keep his legacy alive, keep his memory alive?
There's a quote I heard, and I hope I don't completely butcher it, but it said that you die twice, once when you're buried and once when the last person says your name. And I heard that early on in my widow journey. And so I vowed to never stop saying Rashid's name. And it was funny because I didn't even realize I was doing it in the very beginning when people would ask me about, you know, my life. And I think I would tell everybody I was a widow, but I wouldn't always say Rashid's name for some reason. And I heard that quote, and I realized how important it was, no matter how much it made someone feel uncomfortable, because death makes everyone feel so uncomfortable. But I have tried to find various ways to honor his legacy, his memory, and also our life together. And one of those is the year Rashid died, 2016 in Florida, was a record year for hit and runs. And so I actually worked with Florida Highway Patrol and a number of law enforcement agencies to try to pass hit and run legislation. And I was able to get it introduced in the Florida House, and it made some headway, but it died in committee. So it's something that took a lot of work. And, you know, even me interviewing people, I worked in politics for a while, didn't realize how taxing it was. And so when I got to the end of that process and it didn't fully pass, I knew I just needed to step away and take a break. So it's still on my list of things to do. I just needed to take a break from it. I also have started a scholarship as well as a memorial prize at both our alma maters, Duke University, and his high school alma mater in New Jersey. And we've actually done a number of things in his name, and it feels so good to encourage other people in Rashid's honor, because that's what he did when he was alive. And so doing that in his memory and his honor is something that makes me smile.
Oh, I love that. That is so special. That is so sweet. And I just want to tell folks because, you know, one of my little teasers was like, oh, we have something else in common, you and I, aside from being sorority sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But I don't know if caught it. And for those that know me personally, Kimberly said that she lost her husband April 16th, 2016. I lost Paul Fitzgerald Davis April 16th, 2014. So just 2 years before you did, we share that same date in common. And when I found that out, I was just like, I don't know, I was floored. And I sent you an Instagram message like, oh my God. Like, we're going through the same journey. And one of the things that I want to point out is I thought I was brave enough this year when I started doing these conversations. And I asked Kim, hey, can we have a conversation on April 16th? And Kim said to me, Soror, you good and all, and I will do the conversation, but we are not going to do that on April 16th because I don't know how I'm going to be feeling.
And that's one of the things with grief, especially as time goes on, you have to learn how to set boundaries. And a lot of times it makes people uncomfortable, but to survive this journey, you have to say, sometimes I just need some space. And it's like, either I know I'm going to be this way, and so I need space, or honestly, just like you said, I have no idea what I'm going to feel Friday. I have no idea. But I know I wanted to carve out some space for that. So that's grief, that's
Yeah,
grief. You don't know.
absolutely. But I appreciate that. And I had to like check myself because I don't usually do anything, excuse me, on the 16th. I always leave it open. So the fact that I was like, Kim, let's do this on the 16th. I was like, what am I thinking? I don't know how I'm going to be feeling either.
But it changes though. In different years, you have these different superpowers,
Yeah,
So I
that's
commend
true.
you for doing that. And it's, like you had this, rah Delta woman. I would change the world on the 16th. We're taking it back. And I love that. I was just like, I'm not good there.
I love it. That is great. All right, next question. We got two more questions,
Okay.
and this last question, the last question, we'll talk about it. Okay, okay. Let me not get ahead of myself. I'm so excited. Um, what words of wisdom do you have for a recent widow?
I say give yourself grace, give yourself space, give yourself time. I think we always want a magic date. We want to know when we will quote unquote be okay. We want to be okay for everybody else around us. When we're not okay for everyone else around us, we start to doubt ourselves and feel bad that we're not there for others. But you have to understand, to get to a positive space where you can live with grief and still live, you have to feel everything. And that means
Yeah.
going through some dark and scary spaces sometimes, but you have to go through them. Don't live there. And it's hard because sometimes you might need to be in that dark space for a week. You might need to be there for an hour. But when it starts to get too long, check in, get a therapist,
Absolutely.
friends, whatever it is. But you have to feel all of the emotions. And I say, breathe through it all. And honestly, when I've had some really tough moments, I went through a really tough period. It was actually probably about my third anniversary, Rashid's third anniversary. So 3 years out. And,
Mhm.
by that point, people think you should be okay. And,
You should be over it. Aren't you over
be
it
over
yet?
it. Right. And, I was in a good space and I was doing big things, but obviously you still live with the grief. You still have these really tough moments. And I had a really low moment. And honestly, I was really battling serious suicidal thoughts. And I remember coming home
Mhm.
and thinking, I can't do this anymore. And God, I've done as much as I can do. You have promised things will get better. And I see a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, but I'm tired. My heart is
Mhm.
tired. My mind is tired, and I can't keep going. And so I had a really low moment to the point where I was thinking, who has access to my house? Can my parents easily get to my dog? My affairs in order, because I've already gone through that with Rashid. I
Um,
don't want to make that a whole other issue. And so the one thing that really helped me when I had that moment or other dark moments is there honestly three real things, three tangible things. One, someone told me a long time ago, and that was go outside and literally just feel the air. And even if it's cold, you can. Oh my God! Oh, someone at the door. Sorry.
that's okay.
It's just delivery guy. It's okay. Even when it's cold outside, even when it's rainy, just like sit outside and get some air. And the second one, honestly, take a nap. Like just take 5 minutes sometimes and just lie down, breathe, catch your breath. And the third one is sometimes you just need to cry. Even if you're having a good day, even if you're about to go do
Let those
something,
tears
you've
flow.
got to let it
Yes.
out. You've got to let it out. And those three things have really helped me. So don't feel bad if you have to do that. You should do that. Don't keep it bottled in. Just give yourself some space and grace.
I love that. Space and grace, take a rest, all the things that you have to do. You got to feel the emotions, all of that.
Mhm.
Those are often things that I talk about in just in being resilient and having this, being on this journey of loss, no matter what the loss is.
Yeah.
So you have reiterated so many of the things that I have said over and over again. So I love that. All right. This last question.
Oh,
Last question. Oh, before we get there, we have a great comment. One of my girlfriends, Tiffany, she's like, yes, the tears are cleansing.
yes.
And we talk about that all the time. And so thank you all that have tuned in and shared
Yes.
comments and shared in the conversation. I appreciate you. We have some widows, we have non-widows, we have all kinds of folks.
Love
So
that. Love that.
I know I love that too. So my last question, and
Okay.
look, this is how I've been setting this question up. I said, so the people want to know, right? And by the people, I mean me. Like, I want to know. The people want to know, but I already know the answer to this. But I want you to take us through this, and I'm going to show the picture while
Okay.
I ask the question.
Okay.
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 So what's next is the question is, what happens next in your love story?
Oh, dun, dun,
What? Tell
dun.
us about this. What happens
Well,
next in
I don't
your
know if you can
love
see
story?
my lack of waistline. But yes. So, what happens next is something I never expected to happen. It literally, we are 23 days away from meeting my child, my baby girl, my first little one. And it's something, a little miracle I never expected would happen, especially after losing Rashid in 2016. I swore when I lost Rashid, I would never love again. When people would say it, literally, it would infuriate me. And it, like, they said it thinking it would bring
Mm,
me solace. Oh, you're young. You'll find somebody. You'll be, I lost Rashid when I was 35. And so that's already difficult age when you're thinking about, we didn't have kids. We literally were just about to start. And so it was so difficult to have that on top of it. And I didn't want to love anybody else. But you never tell God what
mm,
you're going to do, because I had to go through the process, and He worked on me and worked through me. And literally about 4 years through my journey, an old friend from Florida, actually, throughout the whole process, he would reach out and check on me. And it was just just as friends. I literally would cut off any guy who remotely seemed as if he was going to try something with me. So he would send cards and say, it's your anniversary, I'm thinking of you. It's
wow.
your birthday. How are you feeling? It's Rashid's birthday. How are you doing? I, I
What?
I see you on Instagram. I see you smiling, but honestly, how are you feeling? And once a year, he would say, we need to set up a time. I just need to hear your voice to make sure you're really okay. And so literally we did this for 4 years. No big deal. He went about his way. I went about my way. That was it. And he always would say, I'm here. You need help. So he, in the beginning of the investigation, I would put up these posters, and I moved from Florida. So I would send them to him. He literally would print out the posters when we're looking for these cars and put them in our neighborhood. He would do TV interviews for me when I couldn't get to Florida in time. So literally, it was a huge, huge blessing and friend, just a friend. And 4 years out, I had a golf tournament for Rashid and his alma mater in New Jersey. And it was the week before my birthday in September. And I remember thinking, like, it's 4 years out. All my girlfriends were saying, it's your birthday. Are you going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, you guys have been there for me. I can do this. And a week out, I was like, I can't do this. I can't go. I know it's all set up. I'm going to fall apart. I can't do this. And then his mom, Rashid's mom and sister couldn't go the last minute. And so I'm thinking, holy cow, who can I call at the last minute to fly to New York with me? And it was a Monday. And so I was like, everybody's got jobs and they can't just leave with the job. And it was less than a week, honestly. So Darian's always flying everywhere. And so I did the one thing I hate to do, which is ask a friend for a huge favor. And I still remember the text. I'm sure it's somewhere in the thread. But I was like, I hate to ask. And if you can, it's totally okay. But think I need somebody, but it's okay if you can't, because I know it's last minute. It's a really awful thing. And don't feel bad if you can't, because I know you have to buy a ticket in like 3 days. And it's a really terrible thing to ask somebody. And he was like, it's fine. I'll see if I can get a flight. And he did. And he flew.
He's like,
to New
stop,
Jersey.
lady, stop, relax.
Please stop texting me. Go away. And he flew in, and Rashid's mom and sister at the last minute were able to go to the golf tournament. And so the 4 of us spent the day together, and it was an awesome day. And it was actually totally unrelated. I actually had a conversation with my mother-in-law, and she was saying that she wanted me to consider opening my heart again, and that perhaps it was time. And again, wasn't thinking it was Darian, but was thinking it was hard, but maybe she was right, because I was starting to feel these things from God, starting to feel
one
this
of our
shit.
viewers says, I like him.
I like him too. But we had this beautiful day at the golf tournament, and it changed everything. And so literally, from that moment on, when we returned home, our friends were like, what's happening? So did something happen? We're like, no. And should something happen? And so we both went through that for a week. And then finally, within 2 weeks, we were dating. And then literally 3 months later, he moved here. And then 6 months after that, we got married. That was last Juneteenth. And now I, honestly was told, because I have fibroid issues, that I would have to do IVF to get pregnant, especially because I turned 40 in September. But miraculously, one day, just woke up and we were pregnant as we were about to try to look into IVF. And so here we are with our little miracle baby, who's doing great and kicking me all the time. And she is on her way in about 3 weeks and some change. So
I absolutely love it.
The lesson of the story is never tell God what you will or won't do. Just go through the process and work on your healing. Work on yourself.
Through the process and work on your healing. Yes, I love that. Let me tell you too, those fibroid issues, Simone we sat in my doctor's office 2 days before our wedding, and she's like, just go on your honeymoon, have a good time. We'll figure out, pregnancy later. Yeah, she's a honeymoon baby. So, and I have fibroid issues. I had to have a myomectomy the year after I gave birth.
I had 2 myomectomies.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what God wants to happen. It will absolutely happen no matter what. So I absolutely love that love story. And you have given some of the widows on this thread encouragement. Let me tell you, they are sitting here like, yes, girl. Yes, I feel it. The way God is setting up. We have all of these things that are popping up. I just want you to see some of these comments that are coming through. Tanisha says, go through the process and work on your healing. Yes, that's a word right there. So you have been speaking to the people this morning.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so glad.
I love it. Absolutely. And, it's been interesting. This is about the 5th or 6th widow conversation that I've had. And when I ask people what's next in their love story, of the widows I've talked to thus far, none of them have been remarried, dating, and we're all out here like this dating it's a whole nother issue. So I think some people like me may be asking, Darren, got any friends? But we'll talk about that offline. But it is just such a joy to see you are a beautiful pregnant lady, and I know you cannot wait to meet your little girl in a few weeks.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And be able to sleep again. I know I won't sleep again, but
you won't sleep. You'll be able to lay in the bed more comfortably.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe that's
it. Absolutely. Well, as we prepare to close out, is there anything else that you'd like to share or say before we end this broadcast?
I think my biggest thing, and going along with, I guess it kind of reinforces never tell God what you will or won't do, but it's honestly, don't settle. And I think a lot of times, especially as a widow, even when you feel you've gotten to a place of quote unquote healing or peace, or you kind of, you're used to where you are, and this is where I am in life and this is what God has for me. And sometimes you end up settling for something, whether it's a job, whether it's, a man, a partner, a spouse, whomever, whatever it is. But the one thing I've learned is literally, if you work on yourself and you stay connected to God and you do what you're supposed to do, God still wants the best for you. He wants his very best for you. And that's what I learned with Darian. It was one thing where, literally I was like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to open my heart again. And, but what guy is going to love a woman who still loves her late husband? And, I'm not willing to put Rashid in a box or a closet and never talk about him again. I'm not willing to stop the things I'm doing in his name or his scholarship. And so what man is going to be able to accept that? And I was like, God, if you can do it, I guess I'll be open to it. Absolutely. And he did it. And it wasn't literally, there's no compromise there. There's like, Darian is an amazing, loving, caring guy. We have conversations about Rashid. We have pictures of Rashid in the house. We talk about memories. Rashid is in there.
He sent you cards on Rashid's birthday.
Exactly. And when I say, okay, yeah, the anniversary is coming up, and he's like, yeah, so what are we doing this year? You need space. What do you need? And Darian's birthday is a week later. And so it's this hard thing where for me, I almost feel like he's too loving and giving. And I have to kind of catch myself and make sure that he also understands how much I appreciate him. But I say all that to say, never settle. That God wants his best for you, no matter what you have gone through, no matter how you feel, you deserve it, and it is out there for you.
That is so awesome. And I may have to interview Darian because seriously, I've heard men talk about this intimidation factor of dating widow women, dating widows. And it doesn't sound like he had any of that, or if he did, he fought through it, right? Yeah. Like he was just like, if he had it, he's like, nope, it doesn't matter because I see this beautiful woman who I want to be her partner, right? And I want to be there for her during all those difficult times. So that is a wonderful love story if I have ever heard it. Yes, that is awesome. My girlfriend is saying like, yes, please interview him. Listen, I started these interviews for Women's History Month for just to highlight great women, and now here I am in other months.
Exactly.
Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. Kimberly, thank you again. Soror, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. I know you work those super early mornings, so you've probably already been up since 1 or 2 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
So stand by for a minute. I'm going to close this out, but thank you again. I truly appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in on this early morning session with my sidekick here, who is over here dancing. Y'all probably just see like half of her in the frame, but I really appreciate you sharing this, commenting. We had so many good comments today, just taking part in this conversation with Kimberly and I. And so for those of you widows that are watching who wish to be remarried, you heard her love story. She did not previously have children with her late husband. She still honors his legacy. She honors his legacy with her new husband. And now she is giving birth to a baby girl in the next few weeks. So it is possible to get love again. So I don't want you to feel like it's not really, my dear child. Yeah, she's having a girl. So thank you so much. And before I close out, a comment just popped up from Darian, said, let's do it. So he wants to do that interview too. So I will bring him to you all. We will plan that out. But thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.